Hi there once again. Great to have you with us. This is Leading Edge. I'm your host, Jeff Smith. So then there were three. Sylvania Township business owner Wayne Kinzel dropped out of the race for Ohio's 9th Congressional District, leaving State Rep Josh Williams, Derek Merrin, and retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Alea Nadeem. Now, this is one of the most closely watched congressional races in America. Ohio's 9th district, long held by Democrat Marcy Kaptur, is once again on the national radar. Republicans see it as one of their best pickup opportunities in the Midwest, while Democrats are fighting hard to hold a seat that has been blue for decades. In fact, I'm going to read to you real quick the list of contenders since 1982. Ed Weber, Frank Venner, Mike Schufelt, Al Hawkins, Dennis Slotnick, Ed Emery. Are you getting the idea? Larry Kazala, Bradley Levitt, Rich Iott, Joe Wurzelbacher, Richard May, Donald Larson, Steve Krause, Rob Weber, J.R. Majewski, Derek Merrin. And joining me today, the race is drawing attention and money from both national parties. Control of the House could hinge on what is decided. I'm so glad to have Alea Nadeem joining us here in studio. We've had an opportunity to talk to both Merrin and Representative Williams here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Does it make you nervous thinking about all the eyes that are on this race right now?
No, it actually makes me excited because it's already a Republican district. So the president won this district by 6%.
Okay.
The same people who voted for Trump also voted for Marcy Kaptur. So what that tells me is we need a good quality candidate. Marcy Kaptur is hard to beat. She's been here for 42 years for a reason, right? So how do we combat that? We need to focus on Marcy Kaptur's record. We also need to focus on how she's voting. She is no longer voting how her constituents want and like, and it hasn't been beneficial to constituents here. So we have a real opportunity in 2026 to flip this district red.
The primary coming up in May. Obviously, you've got differences between yourself, Josh Williams, Derek Merrin. How well do you know them? How marked are the differences between the three of you?
Well, here, let me tell you a secret for all the people. You're going to get a red vote, right? No matter who gets in, right? You're going to get a red vote, which I think is going to be better. The problem is you have these two, right? You have one who's been a career politician. I don't see a difference between Derek Merrin, who's been in office essentially since he was 18 years old. You have somebody like Josh Williams, who has a very colorful record. And if that's exposed, Marcy Kaptur would love to run against somebody like Josh Williams, because it's just like J.R. Majewski. So we need quality candidates who have integrity, who have servant leadership, who can take on Marcy Kaptur. We got to be smart here because the House depends on this seat to be red.
Passion and purpose. We were talking about that before we came on today. So you are a political newcomer. You've got a storied history as far as military is concerned. You have lived abroad. You know the world very well as far as your military career is concerned. Sell yourself to the viewers watching Leading Edge on why they should pull the tab for you.
Well, Jeff, I have a worldly view, right? I had this unfortunate incident when I was a child. I was born in Toledo, kidnapped to Iraq, lived under Saddam Hussein, thankfully rescued by the FBI and my mother. And so I want people to appreciate what it means to be an American. People think America is this terrible place. They say horrible things. I say, if you don't want to be here, go abroad. Go see what it's like. We have one of the best countries in the world. And so part of the reason I joined the military was after 9/11. My country was asking me to serve after they rescued me. It's been the love of my life to serve. And
you were a junior in high school, I understand from your bio, when this happened. You were at Central Catholic High School. You saw that befall America. You said, I've got to get involved.
Yeah, listen, I didn't think I was a military person, but my country called. The same country that rescued me called me. And I said, absolutely. So I've been 21 years in the military as an intelligence officer. I've worked at the White House. I've worked on the National Security Council. I've worked in Congress. I've seen the world perspective. Day one, when I get to Congress, I know how to walk around. I've worked for the appropriations budget committees. I know how it works. So if you want someone day one to hit the ground running, I know how to do that. I have those skills and talents. But more importantly, Jeff, I really want to be a servant leader.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be an American?
What was it about Alea Nadeem at St. Pat's of Heatherdowns that I guess, and you told me, you said you still have friends that you talk to from grade school going to Central Catholic. Did you run for student council? Did you have positions of that type? Were you always kind of feeling this leadership role, or did it just kind of assimilate itself later in life?
I think it assimilated. So I am still best friends with my two friends from St. Patrick's of Heathertowns in grade school, and we've stayed friends for all these years. And I think that's what's special about Toledo.
Are they shocked by you throwing your hat in the ring?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I played broomball, right? But I don't know if I was in like I wasn't interested in that. I was interested in serving people. I get true joy from serving people. We talk about that. What brings you joy? And I just don't feel like the people of Northwest Ohio have had servant leadership. I think it's been dictated by, politics in a way that does not reflect this community. And so I want to do the job myself. I'm tired.
Let me stop you there, and let's talk from a standpoint of not being in politics for a moment and just being frustrated with government. We're taping on a day where we could potentially have a deal in place as far as Israel and Hamas is concerned, seeing the positive in that and our government working for the better good of the globe, right? However, Congress is getting a bad rap. We're in a government shutdown. We're in day 9 as we're taping this. Going into that, still fighting to be a part of that, my question is why?
Why? Because
what's your read sitting here today? Are you frustrated? Are you frustrated with Washington?
Of course I'm frustrated with Washington, and that's why I'm here. Aren't you? I mean, everyone's frustrated with Washington. Here's the reality, is you need someone to go in and represent your people, but you also need somebody to negotiate. It's a numbers game in Washington, right? You have to be able to work across the aisle. Guess what? Things don't get done in Congress if you don't work across the aisle. So if you're on the fringes, it's going to be deadlocked.
But how do you meet them middle of the road, right? Because we all go in with our beliefs, right? Some of us may be more conservative on the economy. We may be more middle of the road when it comes to human nature and things of that nature. But how do you kind of divide yourself from being so far one way or so far the other?
I think the first thing is you have to have conversations. Right, listen, both parties love America, right? There's some leftists who I would say I don't think they loved America.
And some rightists.
And some right.
Yes.
There's crazies on both sides. Let's just acknowledge that. Most people, if you start from their love of America and work back, you can change the world. One thing that I was traveling with a senator, and he always told me, conversations change the world and direction. When we may be on the opposite sides, but if we break bread together, it's going to be different. You can always negotiate.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do that. And what we're seeing in Washington right now, unfortunately, is the government is shut down because the Senate cannot get the 60 votes. And they need the Democrats to do that. And so you're seeing government at a stall. But you mentioned Hamas and Israel. This is where I really want to focus on, in the sense of you have to have powerful leadership and you have to lead with strength. Unfortunately, under the previous administration, we did not have strong leaders. Listen, you know how historic this is? Hamas and Israel have come to a phase 1 deal.
Right.
That is hard. We have to give this administration and the president credit for that. I don't care what you say about his personality.
Right.
Let's just look when rubber meets the road. This is huge.
And from your global view, having grown up where you did, it's got to kind of weigh on you a little bit as well from an international standpoint.
Jeff, I grew up in a war-torn country. I grew up under Saddam Hussein. And I want to be very clear. You know who's left at the end? Is kids, families, right? I wasn't able to even go outside of my house without a male being there, right? So I know what it was like to live in a war-torn country. So the fact that we have possibly peace in Gaza, it really excites me. And I want to be a part of that. I want to be part of strength and peace in the world.
Stay right there. When we come back, Alea Nadeem, she was on the national stage before she ever stepped foot into the political realm. We're going to talk about this appearance on national TV in just a moment. Election season upon us, really, it never leaves, but we've got a primary coming up in May. Alea Nadeem, she is running for Ohio's 9th District, once again looking to take on Marcy Kaptur, who has been there for more than 3 decades, looking at that service to our country. I want to get your read, before we talk a little bit about what we were saying going into break about the national exposure that you had on the Megyn Kelly show when she was on NBC. Give us a read on your campaign. Where do you see things right now?
right? So one of the things that we have to do is—
You're still in.
Oh, I'm still
yeah.
in. I'm in all the way through. One of the things about being a candidate is you have to raise money, right? It's like starting a small business. You have to pay staff. You have to get your message out. So we have deadlines through the Federal Election Commission, and I'm really proud to say this quarter we did about 190K, and that's thanks to voters. That's thanks to people believing in me. So I want to be extra thankful for that. And then last quarter we did—
I want to stop you right there because you said something very candid before we came out here. You said, this is a job where I have to sell myself, and it's tough. It's tough because you're putting yourself out there. You don't want to seem egotistical, but you're still selling yourself, and you don't want to let people down.
Jeff, there's two things I hate. I hate talking about myself, and I hate asking for money because, you know, I grew up humble. I grew up in the military. We don't brag about ourselves. There's no glory in that. You're a servant leader. So the product that I have to sell is myself. But what I would say is what I'm trying to sell is conservative values, and what I'm trying to sell is a servant leader. All I've known is to be a servant leader, to serve people. That brings me the greatest joy, and a representative who really is going to represent the people of this district.
And as a St. Pat's of Heatherdown Central Catholic graduate, your face lit up when you saw our next guest, who's coming on, Rodney Schuster from Catholic Charities, just because of how impassioned you are about this community and how important it is to you. You were on the Megyn Kelly show before she moved off of that network, but this is on NBC. Take a look at this video. This is seven years ago? Is it longer than that?
Yes, I was deployed.
So 7 years ago, you get invited as a guest, and it was like kismet on the reasoning you ended up in that seat, yes?
Yes, exactly.
Talk a little bit about it.
So I was deployed.
Yeah.
And I was helping. We had a 3-star general in charge of the Air Forces there, and I was helping. And what I was bringing is, because I had this unfortunate childhood experience of getting kidnapped to Iraq, I actually spoke the language. I understood the culture. I knew how people acted. And so I was actually pulled up to work for a 3-star general and to help and do analysis, intelligence analysis. So I've been an intelligence officer, and that's what I did. I did that analysis, and it caught the eye of some public affairs officers, and they said, hey, Megyn Kelly wants you to come on the show. So I literally, that clip you're watching, I was deployed, did the show. 48 hours later, I was back in the deployment doing analysis.
They had flown you back and forth. And you said getting your mind wrapped around sitting down for a national interview and then getting back to work was a little bit of a spin for you, huh?
It was. You know, when you're deployed, you kind of have, it's a whole different world. This is your whole world. You work 6 days a week. You're there for 7 days. You're only looking at war. So to come back, to go to New York and film and be asked these questions, I mean, my whole world was turned upside down for 24 hours. And then I was right back to the fight, right back in there. So it was a wonderful opportunity. I thank, Miss Kelly for having me on and giving me that opportunity to highlight the Air Force and the work that we were doing as well.
Talk about your Catholic upbringing, talk about your military background and how that gives you a little bit of an edge. You see it going into this election. Well,
this is what I think. Anytime you serve your country, people have choices of what they do, whether they go into politics, whether they go to school, but serving your country is a really special thing. And for me, we talked about this. I was rescued by this country. So when my country called, I served. It has been a privilege and an honor. I cannot think of anything more honorable. And I've learned more from the Air Force. I am grateful the Air Force let me have that opportunity. And I'm also grateful for Toledo. And we talked about St. Patrick's, and we talked about Central Catholic. The community that we have here is so strong. And that's why I decided to come back home, right? I could have gone everywhere. I've lived all around. I've been in all these cities. But home is Toledo, Ohio, and it made me who I am, and it made me so successful because we have hardworking people here.
Before we go, and we've got about a minute left, I did want to ask you about redistricting, where you see that falling. And do you think, will it end up benefiting a GOP candidate versus a Democratic candidate?
I can't say because that's a legislator business, but what I say, the lines right now, I'm willing to run in. The lines right now are already Republican. Let's beat Marcy Kaptur fair and square. Right. Now, I understand redistricting is going to happen regardless. Do I think it's going to be more favorable? I honestly don't know, but I'm ready to run today.
Alea, it's great to have you here.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate you taking the time. Good conversation. Stay with us. We will be back right after this. And when we do come back, Catholic Charities, Diocese of Toledo, responsible for 13 ministries, food, shelter, clothing, spiritual health, you name it. This time of the year, donations are down, but we're going to talk about a big event coming up. I'm happy to be a part of it once again this year. Stay with us. I wanted to reiterate when we went to break, Catholic Charities, Diocese of Toledo, responsible for 13 ministries involving food, shelter, clothing, spiritual health. And this time of the year, donations are down. And in a couple of weeks, Catholic Charities will host its second annual Hands of Christ Gala. And here to talk about the event and the need that exists, Executive Director Rodney Schuster joining me here. Rodney, thank you so much for doing this. I very much appreciate it. I want to take people back to a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. You were so kind to take me on a tour of Helping Hands of St. Louis on our east side here in Toledo to talk about that part of the ministry. And I know it's just one cog in this wheel that goes round and round 365 days a year, but talk a little bit about that effort and where you guys are seeing things here, especially in the fall.
Yeah. What Helping Hands does, it embodies what Catholic Charities does. Anybody who needs help comes to us. Food, clothing, meals, and we help them. And we help them with an army of volunteers, an army of great staff, an army of people helping give support, because the meal is the first part of the conversation. Yeah. And then we hope to say, okay, what is going on in your lives? And now the beauty is we've had staff that have been there many years. And so once they see somebody coming back a couple times, 4 times, 5 times, like, hey, what's going on? Is there something else that we can do within all the ministries that we have to help them? Yeah. Because we can not do it for them, but if we can help them along the journey, not just a hand out, but a hand up, that's our real goal in all of our ministries. And the Helping Hands is just one of those microcosms of what we do.
And I want to point out, too, to folks at home, the mission is a challenge in itself, but it's especially a challenge at this facility, which has rickety stairs, it's got narrow hallways, it's got storage space that you guys have created out of other space, trying to find places for clothing, trying to find places for food. So it's a work in progress continually, but you guys hope and pray to have something bigger and better going forward, yes?
Yeah, we're hoping to get another site to get a new food and clothing center. We've been working on it for a number of years. But in the meantime, Jeff, we continue to thrive in the space that we have. And you were there. You saw when food donations come in, it gets through a vehicle, through maybe a fireman's carry, through a basement window, into our walk-in freezers, into our walk-in refrigerators. We've got food stored on one side of the clothing center that we carry over to the food pantry. We make it work. Is it ideal? No. But when you're in ministry, when you're there helping people with their most basic needs and their most critical time, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about, as we go forward, and I wanted to touch on the fall because you guys impressed on me, why that's a downtime for donations.
I think it's the transition between summer and then getting back to school and getting closer to winter. We see, as it gets colder, more people coming to us. And we also see that there's less opportunities for families to come together, and then sometimes people become isolated. So they're needing, more people are needing food, more people are needing clothing. And we just see it. And also with the inflation that has happened, and not just, this past year, it's been going on for quite some time. Right. We're starting to see, some of the real long-term impacts of that. So people are coming needing help that usually didn't need help. So we're just seeing the numbers increasing, and some of the aid that used to be out there is no longer available. Yeah. So we're seeing more people, and as a result, we're seeing some less donations, and it's just one of those seasons where we're like, okay, gosh, we hope and pray, and we have events like this Hands of Christ Gala that we bring people together, and with the goal of really getting some valuable support so we can help those people and continue helping as the winter goes on.
Let's talk about the event, second year for this, and you guys are looking to bring people together and not only share the mission and share the message, but break bread together, right? Sitting at those tables and talk about what really makes this thing work.
It's a community. So we bring the community together, like you said, to break bread, to network, to celebrate each other, and then we have fun. Bishop Thomas will be there, and he'll be sharing some words of inspiration. We have a magician, or illusionist as they call him, Giancarlo Bernini, who fooled Penn and Teller. And he became a magician. He started at 8 years old because his dad gave him a card trick. And he continued doing that. And he was on Penn and Teller when he was in college. He didn't beat him that time, or didn't fool him. But as he grew in his art and his craft, he did. And he's Catholic, and he's brought his Catholic faith into his. He's from Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's going to be entertaining. And then most importantly, we're going to recognize some special people. Jim Meads from this area, one of the founders of House of Meats, who's still involved at 95 years young, helping get turkeys during Thanksgiving for Helping Hands of St. Louis, and Tom and Teresa Sloman Sandusky, who were inspirational in helping us open an office in Sandusky 8 years ago. So we recognize them with Hands of Christ. And of course, we also have an opportunity to raise some valuable funds to help us as we get into these winter months, which we know there's going to be greater needs around the airport.
And we had talked as well. You mentioned about schools and donation drives and things like that. You were sharing with me some of the parishes that year after year, they are standbys. They are ready for you guys, and they show up time and time again.
Without volunteers, without people doing food drives, without financial support, Jeff, there is no way we could help on any given day 500 people just at Helping Hands of St. Louis alone. Within our ministries throughout the diocese, it could be 1,000 to 1,500 people a day, but we couldn't do it ourselves. And so we are so thankful for so many in the community. You know, I've shared, like at Helping Hands of St. Louis, we have the Islamic Food Bank, we've got the Church of Latter-day Saints, along with all the parishes and other, Christian communities. Dr. Pat comes and does things. So many people come forward, and thank goodness, because if they didn't, we wouldn't be able to help the people that come to us.
Let's show people at home. Once again, this event comes up on the 23rd. It is Catholic Charities, Diocese of Toledo, Hands of Christ Gala for a second year now. Doors open at 5:45 this year at the premiere. Rodney, good to see you.
Good to see you. Catholic Charities, NWO.org. Check it out. You can get tickets. We'd love to have you there.
I love this. I didn't even have to write that. Rodney, thanks. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back for a final time this week. A big thanks to Alea and Rodney for being part of this week's show. By the way, we'd love for you to be a part of the show. If you've got ideas, comments, questions, concerns, please send them to that email address, leadingedge, all one word, at WTOL.com. Leading Edge, listen, learn, and lead the rest of this week. Great to have you with us. I'll see you next time.